Hey, this is Kyle again from Pure Storage, and this is part 2 of our using vSphere with Tanzu in the HA-Proxy method. So in part 1, we basically set up workload management. We can see it's up and running here. So to get started in this section, we're actually going to go ahead and create a namespace within our workload management area within vCenter. So we select our cluster, we give it a name, TKCKG, and then we select our workload that we defined in the previous video. We'll then go ahead and add some permissions to it just to keep it simple. We use our administrative user within vCenter, and then we'll go ahead and apply 2 of our SPBM policies that were shown in the previous demo video. So basically this namespace now has access to those 2 SPBM policies, one vvols and one vmfs. Next, we'll go ahead and log into vSphere. With the kube control command. This connects us into our workload management namespace. We can see the tkc/kg namespace that I previously created is available here. We'll switch contexts, and just to show, kube control getsc does show those 2 storage classes are available for that namespace to use. If we now use this tkg command, we can see there are no management clusters for Tanzu Kubernetes grid. So we will add the tkc/kg namespace as a management cluster for TKC, and we can see here it has been successfully added. Now that that has been added, what we're going to go ahead and do is deploy our Tanzu Kubernetes cluster. So we're going to do this via a YAML file. Here is the YAML file we will use. We can see we're going to give it this name. It's going to reside within that tkc/kg namespace, version 1.17 of Kubernetes. 3 control plane nodes, 3 worker nodes, and we're going to deploy this on vMFS. TKC right now, January 2021, only works on vMFS, at least as far as my lab testing has shown. Now we're going to go ahead and deploy this TKC. This is a useful command, kube control get events -w, to kind of follow along and see where your TKC deployment is at. If we go over to hosts and clusters, we can see that we have a tkc/kg namespace, and then there is our actual Tanzu Kubernetes cluster being deployed right now. So it's going to go ahead and deploy that first initial control plane, and I'm going to go ahead and skip ahead here. This takes about 10 minutes. We can see it's deploying the 3 worker nodes, and if we look at events, we can see a lot of successes starting to show up here. And then finally, we can see 3 control plane nodes and then 3 worker nodes have been successfully deployed for TKC. With that deployed, now we can actually authenticate to that TKC and TKC namespace itself by giving that administrator vSphere local, but adding a couple of Tanzu Kubernetes flags to that login prompt. What I'm going to go ahead and do now is switch context to TKC-1, that is our Tanzu Kubernetes cluster. So now that we've switched to that, what we're going to do now is actually deploy a MySQL deployment inside, right? So the first thing we need to do is run that run as root rbac command to create the correct roles. We're then going to go ahead and create a MySQL persistent volume claim. That volume claim will be used by the deployment, which can be seen here. So just a couple of simple commands to show how to actually deploy something against that TKC. So the first thing we're going to do is allow run as root for the cluster role. So that's going to create a couple of privileges we can see there. Next thing we're going to do is create a persistent volume claim that this MySQL deployment is going to be able to use. So we can see here is that PVC. It's been deployed. It's a 30 gig persistent volume claim. We can see within vSphere, you can see container volumes have been created, which is a direct result of that PVC YAML file being run. If you go to the cluster and then go to monitor, you can see this container volume actually does appear here, and it is mapping back properly to that vvol data store, which we defined via a storage class in that YAML file. We can see it's connected up to the correct Tanzu Kubernetes cluster. You can add some labels here too to help decide what's what and give a little more idea of what role is for what here. If we actually go to the Pure Storage FlashArray itself, we can see that we do have a volume group that I'll navigate over to here in just a second. It's this first class disk volume group at the top there. vvol fcd 47. If I click into that, we will see there is our 30 gig persistent volume claim, that data vvol. Because it's a data vvol, that does enable us to do some pretty neat things that we will show in subsequent videos. Okay, so we can see that we've now run that MySQL deployment YAML file. It is up and running and it is available. But in order to actually get access to it, we need to expose it via a service. And one easy way to do that is through that command line there, kubectl expose deployment load balancer MySQL service. If we look at our available services, we can see that that service is being stood up. If I run this again, now we can see that there is an external IP address from which we can now consume that MySQL deployment. Thanks a lot for watching. A lot more of interesting stuff to come here, but this is just the beginning. Thank you.